So good evening, everyone. It's 7:06, and I will call this meeting of the Peaslee Building Committee Subcommittee to order at 7:06. And just a note for our minutes and record keeping, this is a subcommittee meeting because there are 5 voting members of the full committee present. We do have a quorum. So we are technically meeting both as a subcommittee, but also a quorum of the full Peaslee Building Committee. And as such, on our agenda, we have electing a chair as item number 2 and electing a vice chair as item number 3. And because this is technically a quorum of the full committee, I would propose to this group that we have Erica chair and Diana vice chair because we are chair and vice chair of the full committee. I think because it's on an agenda, I would like to take a roll call vote. But first, I would entertain a motion on item number 2 to propose a chair for this subcommittee meeting tonight.
I move we name Erica Hall as chair of the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mitch. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Rob. Is there any discussion? And hearing none, a vote by roll call for Erica Hall to chair tonight's meeting. Mitch,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Rob,
Yes.
sorry guys. Sean Durkin,
Yes.
Diana Nicholas,
Yes.
Erica, yes. Motion, okay, so those are in favor. Any opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Okay. For our item 3 is a vice chair, I would entertain a motion for a vice chair for tonight's meeting.
I move that Diana Nicholas be named vice chair of the OPM subcommittee.
Thank you, Mitch. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, thank you for the second. Is there any motion has been made for Diana to vice chair? Is there any discussion? And hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Diana Nicholas,
Yes.
Mitch Cohen,
Yes.
Rob Tomasetti,
Yes.
Sean Durkin,
Yes.
Erica Hall, yes. Motion carries. On item 4, I just want to review our purpose and what brings us here on this beautiful tax day, April 15th, at the end of like such a long Tuesday, which is that there is a subset of the OPM request for services letter, which deals with the evaluation criteria when we evaluate the OPM. And that subset has some weighted criteria. And the purpose of gathering tonight is to look specifically at those weighted criteria to make sure A, they're the list of criteria that we would like to use, and B, that they're appropriately weighted. Rebecca, you'll bring that up on the screen, or Keith, you have a screen share for us?
Yes, I have it.
Okay. So we're focusing specifically on this portion. You'll notice we do have an area for new business. There may be comments on other parts of this, which we could entertain later, but at this time, I would like to just have a really focused discussion on the evaluation criteria. So that brings us to agenda item 5, which is our discussion. Rebecca will bring up the notes and some highlights that the committee brought up in our last meeting were that we really wanted to make sure that the committee has latitude to look at all of the factors that were most important to us, and that we have ability to weight our perspectives when it comes to the interview process too, and specifically that we take into consideration the team's resources and familiarity with our particular project. So that was feedback from our last meeting. At this time, I would open it up to discussion from the group. Maybe we could do by hands raised, and I'll just call in order. Are there any thoughts about, or Rebecca, you want to open any changes that were made last time?
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I don't think we made any adjustments to the criteria. These are just things that I had put together previously. We had skipped over this portion of the RFS.
To defer it to today. All
Yes.
right. So let's kick off a discussion. I think for the purpose of focusing the discussion, do we like the list of items that are here? Are there any additions, subtractions, or changes to the current wording?
The
And
question.
Rob, yep.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Mitch. I can, it's,
oh, sorry, I
Oh,
didn't realize your hand was up. I
oh,
just,
no worries, no worries. Go ahead.
you did it right. You
I
get it.
misheard the voice, so either one of you, it's up to you.
Rob,
All right.
please.
So in reading through this, a lot of the MSBA's guidelines, kind of basic templates are just that, the basic templates for every school project that falls into these categories. I think the big things that set us apart, or not necessarily set us apart, but what I like to focus on are evaluating the proposed team, not just the depth of resources. In my experience, when interviewing, whether it's for on behalf of an ownership group, interviewing a design consultant or a construction manager or an OPM, the actual team matters a lot more than the company itself. So, provided we can get to commercial terms, I would really think we should be evaluating the actual people that we are going to be having this relationship with for the next several years. So whether it's a director, a project manager, a clerk of the works, any part of that team, I think, is super important to really meet and have a good level of confidence and familiarity with as a part of the interview process.
Thank you, Rob. So just follow-up question is, do you see a need for adding? Yeah, okay, so Becky's highlighting a portion on the screen called key personnel. Are you proposing to, what are you proposing? And it seems like the comment falls under this section of key personnel.
I think it's worth more than 10 points
Okay,
in this. I don't know what the points are right now or what we can add and subtract from. I would even go as far as to name names in this, especially at a project director and a project representative or a project manager. Further down the process, once we get into construction, we will have a clerk of the works that is likely a subset of the OPM service. But at the very least, I'd want to name the project director and have that person in the interview as somebody we can ask specific questions, because the companies that we're going to be looking at are definitely going to have MSBA experience. They're definitely going to have OPM experience. So being able to differentiate between them with somebody that we really feels understands our specific needs, I think is going to be a very good way to differentiate and eventually get to an award for an OPM.
okay. Okay, yeah, Becky.
Erica, yeah. So one of the requirements is that these points add up to 100 points.
Mhm.
So if we were going to add points there, we would have to find another area where we would want to subtract from. And then I just wanted to point out that they do that the firm does have to identify, I think it's this language right here, identifies the individuals and associated firms, if any, who will fill the roles of project director, project representative, and any other key roles identified by us. So
how do we request their presence in the meetings, in the interviews?
We should be able to do that when we send them the invitation for interview.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because Becky, when you send out your standard questions, that'll be in the form of a letter or something like that, which would have information about the interview, the location, the amount of time, and you can request.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I know when we did this with NERI, all of the firms did have those key individuals included in the interview call.
Thank you. So for the purpose of moving the discussion, and I know Mitch has a question, so I'm just going to acknowledge, Rob, one of your comments has been addressed. Another comment is sort of standing, which we can circle back once we've heard everyone's thoughts, which is a suggestion to more heavily weight item number
What would
four,
be
five.
five?
Okay, thank you, five.
It will be five once the
Future
comments are
five.
accepted. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, just following up on Rob's comment, which I agree with about adding more points to the key personnel item, might be my suggestion if we wanted to add 5 to that is maybe take 5 away from item 2, thorough knowledge of the state building code. Only not that it's not important, but if they don't have thorough knowledge of this, they're not going to be in the mix. They won't be qualified to submit by MSBA, and they certainly wouldn't be approved by MSBA. So if we wanted to steal 5 from somewhere, we could do it from there. The item that do you want to talk about that at all? Because that's not the item I was originally going to bring up.
I see Diana's hand. Is that a comment on to Mitch's latest comment?
It's a comment to Mitch's comment and Rob's also.
Sure, then let's do that if you're amenable, and then
Oh, yeah.
back to, okay, yep. So Diana,
I agree, first of all, with Rob that we should add more to that one. All of the people that we are going to hear from as project director, et cetera, are going to be qualified. I'm more interested in the second half of that point, which is their capacity, because they can give us fantastic resumes. But are we really going to know for sure, probably never for sure, if they're actually going to have the capacity to do the work? So to the extent that we can, I think, part of me wants to break this into like 2 separate criteria. I don't know if we want to go that far, but maybe in the interview, we can get a better sense of, are they really going to be able to commit to the job? I think that's actually very difficult to do, though, with the clerk of the works, because that is dependent on what's happening either 18 months from now or 2.5 years from now. They can't necessarily guarantee the clerk of the works, but I'm really interested in the project director. So that's my feeling about that one. I agree, Mitch, that taking the 5 points off of the building code makes sense, because in reality, the people that are supposed to know that and at the end of the day are completely held responsible for the building code are the designer and the contractor, not the OPM. So that's all.
thank you. So there's been a discussion about allocating points, 5 points away from item 2 and toward 5. There's also been a discussion about more heavily weighting item 6. If we can kind of just have a fluid discussion, and back to Diana, you had a follow-up?
I think you meant item 5, not item 6.
So weighting item 5 more heavily, but also future item 6 capacity.
Well, but
Yep.
capacity, it does say capacity for number 6, but what I'm talking about is the time commitment. Describe the time commitment.
Okay, thank you for
So
clarifying
that's
that.
what, I guess
Yep.
that's what I'm referring to, but your point is noted that I think capacity in number 6 is referring to their abilities.
Got it. Okay.
Reading this correctly.
Hmm.
I just want to know that they're going to be able to show up and do the job, whether
Yep.
that's in 5 or 6. That's sort of where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you
Well
for
said.
clarifying. Mitch?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a very good point. I've been on projects where you hire a certain set of people, and then once you get into it, you've got a different set of people, and that can sometimes work out well and sometimes doesn't. The another item I wanted to mention unrelated to that is in number 4, we list 90,000 square feet. Given that we are looking at a couple of models, and one of those models that at least will be part of the initial discussion is almost a doubling of the size of the building, because that would be, on the assumption that one elementary school would go away. I think we're probably looking at larger than 90,000. I wasn't part of the initial drafting of where the 90 came from. I don't know how much of a big deal it is, but given that the existing Peaslee is what, 50,000? That I would take a rough guess that anything would be looking for just to reproduce its purpose is probably going to be, 60 or 75. And then anything that would handle double that would probably be close to double that. So we may want to either up that number, or include a larger range. And that's helpful where once we're looking at people, if people have only done 75,000 square foot schools and have never done anything bigger, we might want to at least know that.
Thank
during the
you.
review.
Rebecca, can I pass that comment back to you for do we have I don't have the literature in front of me on the current square footage for Peaslee.
Keith, do you know that off the top of your head?
I think it's listed as 50,000 in
Okay,
the
in the
document.
background. Okay, yes, I'll look at that. But that being said, Rebecca, where's the 90,000 coming from?
It was a placeholder that I put in. It was something
Okay.
that we had used for our NERI project. And so I used that as a placeholder and I thought it would just be a good starting point for conversation.
Okay. Which we are having at the present time. Keith.
Just a little clarification, the current Peaslee is just a shade under 50,000. And
Okay.
the other thing that's worth noting is that the new NERI, which is going to be a 4-grade school, we hope, is just shy of 100,000 square feet. So that's working within the current MSBA and would roughly be similar enrollment, I believe, if we were to consolidate.
Okay, so 90 might be okay there.
Might be okay.
Okay. What's Lincoln as it stands now, if you know that?
58.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
Becky,
In which case, sorry, I guess I withdraw my concern that I think if we're covered at 90.
Thank you. Diana?
I was just going to ask on that note, I apologize if I missed this. Have we received the statement of interest that was sent to the MSBA?
I don't know if that was sent in an earlier communication. I can go back and look to see what was shared with the committee.
Okay, that would be great.
And
You
if
may have
not, we
sent
can
it, and
certainly provide that for you, Diana. Not a problem.
thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
That would tell us all of these things that we're trying to figure out. So
You're reminding me that a project on Erica's to-do list is to facilitate kind of a forms library and populate
right.
that and with access. And that's one of the things rolling around up here. So it's now a note on a piece of paper.
Thank you.
Are there other new comments? Any other we've had 1 point reallocation suggestion.
I just have one question on number 6.
Yes.
This is Sean.
Hi, Sean.
When it's capacity, does that mean we're allowed to ask them how many the jobs they're either bidding on or have balls in the air, or do they just have to tell us what they're working on for us?
So they actually going to submit, there's a required form that MSBA, actually, I believe it's a DCAM form, if I'm not mistaken, that does outline all of their current projects that they're working on. It's not going to show us what other projects they're bidding on, but at least we would have a sense for what else they have in the pipeline.
We can get into their bidding backlog, though, in an interview once we get down to a 3 or a 4 bidder set.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, at this point, I would ask, is there a consensus from the group for the point reallocation from item number 2 to item number 5? A reallocation of 5 points? All right, it looks like we have a lot of head nodding.
Yeah. Thumbs
Sean,
up.
we can't
Head
see
nod.
your head.
That's fine by me.
Okay.
I'll go along with that.
All right, and I think just a thought, which I think Rob touched on this, but we are interviewing someone for a long-term relationship that could last longer than some marriages.
Don't put that in the job description, but okay.
So,
Wow.
so when we sit down and look at the points, we have to build enough room into those points that we can weight it appropriately with our but I think maybe we're adding up to 100. Our math works. Is there any other comment, Diana? Rob?
Is there if I missed it, I apologize. Our process of evaluation, whether or not we're going to consolidate grades, get to a decision of if we're going to build a 60,000 square foot school or 120,000 square foot school with the different grade configurations, is there an opportunity for an OPM to help us through that process, point out different things we should be aware of? Is that an evaluation criteria?
I don't know if it's an evaluation criteria, but that is obvious. That is something that they would help us with. That's that part of the feasibility where we are looking at the different configurations and determining which one is actually going to be the most appropriate for us. But we could certainly add something about experience with that.
On item number, Diana, I see your hand raised. I'm just going to say one thing. On item number 9, where it says thorough knowledge and demonstrated experience with life cycle cost analysis, estimating, value engineering. I don't know if there's an opportunity there to add the phrase, evaluation of grade reconfiguration.
Is there an official term for that I'm forgetting? I apologize.
Not that I
Grade reconfiguration?
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, Diana.
I think you got the term correct. Just grade reconfigure. Or, I mean, in this case, it's also expanded beyond that because there's also an enrollment study with it. But
We
I
up
guess-
above, we called it enrollment scenarios up above.
yeah, you could call it. I mean, I don't think
yeah.
there's a specific terminology, but I probably wouldn't put it in with life cycle cost analysis, cost estimating, and value engineering, because those are much more sort of like building science terminologies. But the language about, the fact that you want someone who's worked on MSBA projects, I mean, this is not uncommon in the MSBA world. And I think, if I were going to put it in, I'd probably add it in the section on, and maybe in number 1. And I don't know exactly what attachment C requires, but that's probably a form we don't have the ability to modify regardless. But
That's the DCAM form that I was referring to.
right, okay, so yeah, we wouldn't be changing that. But keep in mind that that's also something you can specify that the designers have experience with. And I think I may have mentioned this before. The designer's going to have an educational planner on their team. And there are only a handful of firms that do that in the Commonwealth. And they've all done this many times. So we're going to have several different professionals that can help us with that. And I think it would be challenging to find an OPM who hadn't gone through the process. So I guess I feel less strongly about articulating that we need to list it in the criteria to shortlist. It's something we could also include at the time of interview if we wanted to, or we could make that one of our standard interview questions perhaps. But I don't know. But if there's a question that people think makes sense to put it in, I just don't think the building science one is quite the right spot for it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yes, Rob?
No, that's a great point. I definitely respect that, Dan. So thank you for that. Again, not strongly felt, and I appreciate the insight into a design professional having educational resources specifically dedicated to help guide us through that. So 100% with you on that. I think that's the more important part of the relationship. Just in the back of my head, I'm thinking that we're going to get 15 responses, 20 responses to this RFP, and we're going to feel like we're underwater and stressed for time already in kind of getting to a decision. That might be a helpful metric by which to kind of winnow down the field, but I could be wrong. It doesn't.
Well, I think the fact that we're doing this over a holiday weekend is actually going to keep us from getting as many as we would.
Well,
So
and the
maybe we'll,
goal,
probably not. It'll just stress us out, though. That's okay.
yeah, we can talk about some timeline later because it is, the ultimate goal is to make the right decision and take the time it takes to do
Sure.
this the right way. And because it is a long relationship. Rebecca, I just saw a look on your face. How many respondents would, if you were a betting woman? But what's your experience been when we throw a number like 12 to 15? Are you thinking like 8 to 6?
Yeah, I was actually trying to get into my folder to see like what we had for respondents for the NERI project. I would say, yeah, you're probably looking at about 6 to 8 responses. And I don't know, Diana, when we did that project, it was around the 4th of July. So,
Yeah.
with those numbers. So I would say I don't think Memorial Day is going to hamper, submissions for this, because I also think many of the firms have things kind of ready and prepared to go, like they
That's
have
true.
there.
But I don't think we'll get 15 to 20 either.
No, I agree. Yes.
Oh, that's fine. Just
And that's a good problem to have, right? So, yeah, I mean, I do think to your point, we've got 2 bullet points under number 1. The second bullet point, somebody mentioned a working relationship with the MSBA, and the second bullet point B does address that. A bullet point C might call out specific recent experience with various enrollment projections or enrollment scenarios. And maybe it's not the most heavily weighted, but it's something, it's an item for consideration that could maybe live there.
hypothetically, where would we take points from? I don't want to undervalue anything else that needs to be seriously considered. I would possibly suggest making an addition to bullet point B, like contractors, owner, MSBA, and local officials, specifically citing examples of XYZ experience. If the group wanted to add something like that, I think that would be where I would put it, rather than make bullet C.
There's been some discussion about adding it and also about not needing to add it. Is there any other thoughts from members on the group about if this is helpful points or not?
I think that's very appropriate there.
And
Okay.
if I can I found my folder, we had 9 responses for NERI.
Okay,
So,
all right. Are there any other thoughts on evaluation criteria? We made really just a few tweaks to it. All right.
Can I
Yes.
ask? Sorry,
Yes,
this is me wordsmithing again.
yes.
Rather than school configurations, I think we want to say grade configuration. Unless others.
That's a good point. That might imply architectural configurations or building system configurations.
Thank you.
And
All
on just a
right.
minor note before, I think specifically should probably have a comma before it instead of a period and not capitalized.
Thank you.
Getting into the extreme wordsmithing.
Well, better now than a kickback later. So, yep. All right. Thanks, everyone. I think if I hear no more comments, then thank you for this discussion. And Rebecca, are you satisfied with the notes? And okay. I would move to item 6 now, which is new business. And I would like to at this time talk about the timeline a little bit and just revisit that. Between when we last met, the committee voiced several things at a late hour. And, one of it was, I think, the committee's desire to allocate the time that's needed now up front to make a wise long-term decision. One point to clarify is that there's a point A and a point B of the timeline from MSBA. And if we change the point B, point A must also change. So we can't kick out a final deadline. The whole process then slides, which means that if you think about the calendar in your mind, we either slide to hover right over the 4th of July holiday, or we have hovered around the Memorial Day holiday. And the nice thing about Memorial Day is people come back. Usually 4th of July, can't guarantee that. So if we can, this is sort of a recommended point A and point B from the MSBA. And when I say point A, I'm specifically talking about when the ad gets placed, and point B is when we sort of submit on the June 11 to then therefore go before the July 12 MSBA. That being said, the points in between we do have some flexibility with, and we did note that the questions responses sent out. Last day for questions was May 15. So there was an opportunity to not have Rebecca working over the weekend to respond to questions, and with the note that any questions need responses sent out to all applicants. Do you have an updated time frame, Rebecca, on giving us some more breathing here? Oh, this is updated.
This is the updated. So everything that's highlighted, those are the dates that are prescribed by MSBA. So those are really the dates that we have to work within. So we are plan to advertise on, I think it's Wednesday, May 7th, because I know that's when the Central Register is published. We would hold a site visit the following Tuesday at Peaslee. By Thursday afternoon, we would request that all questions are submitted to the district. And then the following day, we would then send out all of send the responses out to all registered bidders. And then the following Wednesday would be when responses are due. So that is a 2-week timeline that is prescribed by Mass General Law. As a requirement, as the minimum amount of time. And it's also the time that MSBA has said that we do need to have responses due. And then the other thing we talked about, sorry, Erica, is
yes.
So we will shortlist the respondents on, or at least begin the process of shortlisting on Tuesday, May 27th. So that is the day after Memorial Day. But then we have moved the interview for the shortlisted, respondents to the following Monday night on June 2nd. So it will give the committee a little bit more time in between. If we need a second night to come up with that final list, it would give us some more time to do that. And then also still give potential OPM firms the ability or enough time or enough notice for those interviews as well.
Okay, so thank you, Rebecca. So with your calendars pulled up in parallel here, at the last time that we spoke, those 2 dates in particular, May 27 and June 2. What happens on May 27 is I want you to check your calendars and allocate a meeting time for this body to go through our responses and shortlist them. The beauty is that if we need some extra time, that meeting overflows into something else. Initially, we were thinking of interviews even as early as that same week, but by having interviews on the following Monday, the next week, if we have some overflow or something, we have that whole week after Memorial Day. So for this subcommittee, the 27th and the 2nd are really key dates. Is anyone on this meeting alarmed by those dates? Is your calendar syncing up very beautifully with the MSBA's? Is that what all we're thinking? Okay.
Good to me.
Okay, Sean, I heard a good to me.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Diana?
Those sync up provided that the 27th we would meet in the evening. I think I had previously offered the morning of the 27th, but that is not an option any longer.
Okay, yep.
But the evening for both of those dates is fine.
Okay.
I take May 27th in the evening. The fact that it's my anniversary doesn't count for this
Oh.
committee.
Oh, it's your anniversary.
So it's a weekday. It's okay.
Well, if your beloved needs a call from the chair or some roses, maybe we should make that happen.
No, I would not dare say that on public record.
Okay, okay.
No,
Okay,
it will
maybe
be okay.
have some,
Just
a bouquet of flowers or something. All right.
I will take
So-
care of that.
Okay, yes. So we have thank you, Rebecca, for going through that with us. And then the remainder of it is kind of just sticking to our timeline with negotiations, and should not be a heavy lift for this committee because negotiations take place between the owner and the school district. So thank you for going through that. That was a note on scheduling under new business. Is there any other new business at this time from the committee members?
Yeah, I have an item.
Yes.
Remember, I had mentioned to you that I have a commercial office available at 361 West Main Street, which would entail a conference room. It's at Dixon Inc. where I worked. We do commercial construction, but it would give us the opportunity to scatter papers around the table, interview people, and maybe I don't know, maybe it would look good for construction guys coming in to keep going forward on this progress. So we could use that as a meeting space for any and all future meetings.
Thank you. So it's a space where if we needed, even as a group, if we decided to come together in person at some point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And also, I think that the interviews will all be open meeting. And so we just need to check the guidelines if we need, because it's open and it's available to the public, we need to run some details on making sure that the space is accessible, and so we can work offline and find sort of the best space.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other? Yes, Mitch.
Yeah, I had a couple of other items on the RFS.
Yes.
Outside of those 11, just below that in the interview section, in order to establish a short list, whatever, its final ranking after conducting interviews. It does not say how we will do that. That's important unless there is something that I'm missing that we need to qualify. Also, there's an asterisk, at least in my copy, about interviews period. Asterisk. Yeah, there's an asterisk there too. Oh, okay. So that's from the deleted item there. So I was curious what that asterisk was because I wasn't seeing that item below. So we should probably, are you seeing, I think is this Becky's screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Okay.
asterisk points to that
Yeah. Just down
deleted
below.
thing below.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So I was curious what that asterisk was. And then how do we then rank? Are we adding points to the evaluation criteria from above, or are we saying that anyone who is interviewed, that starts the clock over again, and then we in some way rank based on the interviews alone to determine the finalist?
So there was some language down below about the process that we had
Okay.
gone over during our last meeting, where we did talk, I think it's bullet point 4.
Okay, I apologize for missing that.
Make that a little bigger.
Okay.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith and Rebecca, when we went to the MSBA info session, was there a template interview spreadsheet that the MSBA provided? Am I getting that confused in their, they don't ask for the ranking sheets that are used post-interview, but didn't they supply a template, interview ranking sheet?
Yes, there will be a sheet that we will need to provide to them once we have finalized all of our rankings and selected our OPM. That's part of some of the paperwork that needs to be submitted to them. However, what we normally use when we're doing like any type of procurement, like an RFS or an RFP, we will put together a spreadsheet that we will share with the committee where they can kind of do the work in that spreadsheet. It will calculate for us, and then we can transcribe it once we have that final data onto the MSBA sheet.
I think it's to Mitch's point, I think it's worthy of discussion um when the interviews of shortlist are complete. Um, is it then by point, an aggregate point ranking of the points used to shortlist? Or is it just comparing apples to apples to apples of the shortlisted interviews?
Yeah, it says we'll add their rating to the scoring tools of the shortlisted respondents, but I don't see how many points that.
So what we
Yeah,
will
I could be
do
missing it.
as a committee, it's not part of this request for services. As a committee, we will get together and we will determine the questions that we want to ask. And then we can then determine how we are going to rate those, but that's not part of this document. I know we decided that we did want to share those interview questions with the firms in advance, but that would be work that we would do after
Okay.
after this process is underway.
Okay. So in theory, that could be adding an additional 100 points if we wanted to do that.
I think this is written that it would actually, we would then interview and this would be a new set of rankings.
I think that's
So,
what I remember, Becky,
yep,
is that
yep.
basically it resets the
Yeah.
score, Mitch, where
Yeah.
all of the final
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's my ideal, but the language I'm seeing, it says it will add their rating to
I
the
see what you're
scoring
looking at.
tools of the shortlisted respondents.
Yeah, I see that too.
I would interpret that as it's adding numbers.
Aggregate.
Yeah. I mean, what I want to avoid is someone that does stellar on paper and bombs the interview.
Exactly.
I can rework that language.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I do see here once the interviews are complete, the committee will rate the shortlisted respondents utilizing a scoring sheet specific to the interviews.
You
Yeah.
may be able to end the paragraph there. In other words, strike the following sentence.
Well, I think this is the school building committee as a whole will review the interview ratings and then select the first ranked respondent. So I think it's just reviewing
Okay.
what people have done, and then from there select those who they would like to move forward. But I can go back and look at that language, Mitch, and see if
Yeah.
it contradicts it.
Yeah. It's just, I'm looking at this live, but it looks confusing to me with the adding the rating to the scoring tools. What does that mean? Does that simply mean adding another line, or does that mean doing a mathematical addition?
Yeah, I'll rework
Okay.
it.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Any other new business from committee members?
I have sorry, one other item towards the
Yes.
top of the RFS. The estimated total project cost. While I would love to see this in the $40 million range, I don't think we're going to be that lucky. I don't know, Becky and Keith, if you can lend and okay, so that's been changed. The copy I had said 40 to 90, and now this is 40 to 120. That's probably more accurate. It might be more than that if we end up doing the grade reshuffling and combining, but what are you looking at for the Neary project?
Before MSBA, it's 108.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we talked at
Yeah.
the last meeting about going to 120 just based on
Yeah.
a rough escalation.
Okay. Yeah, as I said, the copy that I had just said 90, so 120 makes sense to me. And 40, you might as well be optimistic if we come up with something.
That's what we were thinking, Mitch.
Yeah.
All right. Any other items of new business from the committee? Thank you. At this point, there's an opportunity for public comment. Is there any raised hands from any of our visitors? And hearing none. Thank you, everyone, for meeting tonight. I really appreciate your time. And we'll be back in touch soon for a follow-up meeting. At our next meeting, of course, we'll be looking at interview scoring and criteria. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, we'll vote by roll call. We're voting to adjourn. Diana,
Yes.
Mitch,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
and Erica says yes. As much as I've enjoyed spending this evening with you, we'll get to do it again soon enough. So it's 7:53 and meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.